Resident Evil 2 Remake has been out for a little while now, and I think we can all agree it's pretty damn good. Across all the reviews, the most echoed sentiment was how it does the original game justice. To prep myself for playing the remake, I played through the original 98 RE2 for the first time ever before diving into the 2019 revamp, and generally speaking, it's a pretty faithful remake.
That's good.
But something did feel strangely missing. It wasn't the lack of a distinctive A-B scenario or the occasionally underwhelming boss fight. Instead, it was how the game made me feel. Initially, that statement sounds a little hard to quantify. Obviously everyone is unique and will have their own impression of Resident Evil 2, but when viewed side by side, it's clear that both games have different tones and very different approaches to generating fear. And I believe this is the key to understanding why one of these games is more effective at getting under the skin. So let's compare
Resident Evil 2
with
Resident Evil 2.
Hope that doesn't get confusing. After booting up the original Resident Evil 2 and watching a brief prologue, you'll be greeted with this message. They were parted by an unescapable destiny. This is just the beginning of their worst nightmare. The keyword here is nightmare. It's also featured repeatedly on the back of the game's box, and when paired with the game's own disturbing images and twisted logic, it's clear that this game wants to give you the sensation of being gripped by your worst nightmare. The RPD building itself has a bizarre architecture, sitting uncomfortably somewhere between police station, museum, and mansion. Logically, there's no way this place could function as a police station, since all the rooms feel so disjointed, and the fixed camera angles ensure you'll lose your sense of where True North really is. These angles are mostly a result of PlayStation 1 hardware limitations, and this is a creative workaround that not only preserves detailed backgrounds, but also disorientates the player. There's something inherently nightmare-esque about being trapped in a labyrinthian giant building, and it's exacerbated by the ghoulish decorations. The police chief is a collector of rare and macabre art, and you'll need to interact with nude paintings and eyeless statues to progress. It's unsettling to say the least, and the environments are peppered with tiny details to make you think twice about going along certain corridors, because you'll never know what's going to be around the next corner. A constantly evolving pool of enemies frequently catches you off guard, and even things like birds and giant spiders want you dead. The most disturbing encounter comes quite late in the game as you go through the labs. You stumble into a stretch that's coated in alien-like eggs as larvae drip from the ceiling. It's a long walk to the next door, and literally anything could be on the other side of it. And it's a disgusting, giant moth. There's only one of these in the entire game. There's no explanation behind it, so it makes no sense. But the fact it was literally the last thing I expected to see when I went through that door is exactly why this moment stuck with me. The fear of the unknown is the most powerful type of terror, and the surreal, nightmare-like quality of the game eventually convinces you that anything can happen during gameplay, and that constant sense of unease not only builds tension, but really gets under your skin. The remake just doesn't carry the same aura with it, since several of these aspects are totally missing. The word nightmare is nowhere to be seen, gone are the creepy art and giant moths, and so too are the tank controls and fixed camera angles, in lieu of a new over-the-shoulder perspective, which replaces voyeurism with immersion. The remake offers a different kind of horror as a result, one that's born from the new mechanics designed specifically for this remake. In particular, they make some very clever decisions to rework the enemies. Lickers, one of the most imposing enemies in the game, are now blind, so it's up to you on how you want to engage them. Do you go the safe route and waste all your ammo on killing them, or do you play it risky and sneak by undetected? Some of the nastiest moments in the entire game thrust you into a room brimming with them and force you to walk a slow mile past them. Mr. X too has seen a massive revamp, since he does the whole alien isolation thing and stalks you around the entire building. Just when you think you're feeling comfortable at surviving, the game throws an invincible Terminator at you, which adds a whole new dimension to how you approach backtracking. Turning round a corner only to see him marching towards you is purely horrifying, and it's anxiety-inducing just knowing that he's nearby. But the real star of the show are the zombies themselves, because Capcom have found a way to make these guys scary again. Their inhuman moans and screeching as they rush from the cover of darkness is horrific, and while running past them is still an option, leaving them alive means that they'll be waiting to take a chomp out of you next time you backtrack. Bullets often do the job, but even when you think one is down for the count, zombies have a nasty habit of proving you wrong just as you least expect it, and that keeps things delightfully tense. To keep the shooting tense, the game smartly encourages you to stand still for a huge accuracy boost, effectively rewarding you for standing your ground as enemies advance. On top of that, you have sub-weapons, windows to barricade, and craftable ammo, so you have even more tricky decisions to make on the fly, which is brilliant. From a design perspective, these changes are excellent, since they expertly build on the survival mechanics of the classic Resident Evil games. You have many more ways to deal with the nasties in this game, and the horror comes from the moment-to-moment gameplay as you choose how to survive these intimate encounters. In many ways, it's a vast improvement over the original game, but the remake replaces the dread-inducing atmosphere of the original with immersive tension to generate horror. Both games are wholly successful in their approach, but the remake doesn't quite provide the chills that are synonymous with classic Resident Evil games. This change in direction is even more apparent when comparing the music in Resident Evil 2. The soundtrack is easily one of the most iconic and memorable parts of the original game, since every track expertly conveys a sense of lurking danger. The basement theme in particular sounds exactly like wading through your darkest dream. Even the safe room theme feels off kilter. It gives off similar vibes to the Twin Peaks intro. There's an underlying darkness to both pieces of music. Even though what you see is safe and comfortable, the music is subtly telling you otherwise. It's a great soundtrack, but it's noticeably absent in the remake, which is initially disappointing, but the silence opened the floodgates for some truly phenomenal sound design. Zombies pounding on doors, a licker's claws tickling concrete, and Mr. X's imposing footsteps are enough to stop your heart. It's like hiding from a psycho axe killer. Hearing these noises engages some deep-seated human instinct to survive, since you can actually feel yourself straining to listen out for the danger. If you play wearing headphones, you're in for a hell of a treat, since the binaural audio lets you perceive exactly which direction the danger is coming from. It's unbelievably immersive, and the decision to cut the game's music ultimately suits this game's style. One feature of the original game that has aged almost accidentally well are the awkward character performances and dialogue.
There's no reason for us to stay any longer than necessary. Let's split up, look for any survivors, and get out of here.
Right.
Hideki Kamiya recently opened up about coaching the voice acting of the game and explained why everything sounds a little off. I vividly remember the first day we arrived at our studio in Canada. Our interpreter suddenly said, "I've got a stomachache, so I'm going back to the hotel." So I basically had to direct the voice recording sessions with gestures and broken English. I love this piece of trivia, and frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Speech has odd tempo in places, and intonations can make the dialogue sound almost alien.
What's going on? I arrived in town, and the whole place went
Great!
insane.
The radio's out!
You're a cop, right?
Yeah, first day on the job. Great, huh?
It's deeply unsettling, because this just isn't how a human being speaks. Every interaction has a David Lynch quality that somehow enhances the creep factor. It's as entertaining as it is jarring to listen to, and it subconsciously keeps you on edge. Now obviously, in remaking a game for 2019, you'd want the graphics, animations, and voice acting to be a lot more refined, but recapturing the same campy but unsettling vibe of the OG game apparently wasn't the objective. The remake is a game that wants to be taken seriously, and nowhere is this tonal shift more evident than in the remake's new title sequence, which has all the polish of a HBO drama. And I think this intro is emblematic of the game's new approach as a whole. The new gritty realism direction translates well into the gameplay, but within the narrative, it feels a little bit safe. It does away with the weirdness of the original and plays it straight to appeal to a new generation of players, but in doing so, it sacrifices a lot of personality and creepiness that made the original a fan favourite. And the surreal, dreamy tone of this game is the reason why it still holds up today. Through a combination of hardware limitations and language barriers, the original almost unintentionally casts a spell on you. It's like a well-told ghost story, one that lingers in your mind after all the lights have gone out, and it continues to haunt players even after 20 years. Whereas the remake is a ghost train, a thrilling vehicle to pay tribute to the first game, plus some great ideas on how to keep it feeling fresh. And hats off to Capcom, because this remake is so damn fun and engaging. It's been a long time coming, but this remake does the first game proud, successfully bringing the RE2 experience into the modern era. Instead of getting a definitive version of the game, we got something better. 2 unique trips through Raccoon City that are both remarkable in their own way. The remake isn't a nightmare, but its mechanics-driven approach to horror ensures that it's still a hell of a good time.